Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UBNradio.com.
I'm very perky today. Good afternoon. Welcome to Distill It, a 360-degree view of life and sports. I'm Wendy Rosenthal, your co-host, along with my esteemed and amazing guest, my partner, host.
Partner.
We were talking about guests.
We were talking about how we
Schwitzer.
have so much to say this week that we couldn't actually have a guest take up any time in studio.
We really
get
do.
all of our thoughts out.
Yes, it's going to be a very interesting show today. We are what we are calling freestyling it today. We have the incredible opportunity to not have a guest today.
Yeah.
For good reasons.
Right.
Because we do have a lot to say.
The last few weeks have been really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we often talk about sports really being a metaphor for life, and I think at no other time than really, I think Super Bowl weekend, it's sort of like the week leading up to Super Bowl weekend, kicked it off. I think you and I both had a few different discussions with people, and it highlighted some of the things that we've talked about throughout the last few months, several shows. So we thought today
we're going to do it. Things that kind of shocked us, amazed us, and also kind of fit in with what we talk about every week on this show and why we're here. And we are here because Eira and I are partners in a company called The Distillery, and we work with athletes to repurpose their athletic intelligence and distill their essence into something that they can really take into their lives after their career.
Sure.
And part of our ethos is that sports is a metaphor for life. We talk about it every show, and it just became very clear to us in the last couple of weeks that there are way many, not even too many, well, maybe too many because we only have 50 minutes, but examples of what that really means. And we wanted to talk about it. So we told all the guests to stay away. We said, can't come on this week. This is our week. And it's almost our 20th show. So we kind of, in a prep leading up to that 20th show, we wanted to have
But we're also looking
say.
forward to our next show in 2 weeks, which we are going to have an amazing guest.
Yes.
And we are very excited to have her.
Which we will talk
come on
about.
and we'll talk about her
At the end of the
the
show.
end of this,
But before we get started, we want to say hello to Jarvis, our security blanket and engineer extraordinaire.
Hello.
And we told Jarvis that despite his reluctance, he may have to voice some opinions as we talk today.
If we say something really controversial that gets sort of under his skin,
He
might jump in.
He's done it. We have a couple of things that you might want to jump in on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You
we'll
get
see.
ready?
We'll see.
Okay.
He's open.
Okay. We also would love it if you wanted to send your comments, questions, either through Facebook or we want to hear your voice. We want you to chime in.
Call us up.
Call us up. The number here at the amazing UBN network, which we are very proud to be part of, is 323-284-7826, or you can Skype in on UBN Radio 1 guest. We would love to hear your opinions. And as always, we have to say a little bit of a thing about my hat. I got a thing about my hat.
Did you bring in the other thing you were going to wear?
I think I left it in the car because you told me you'd shoot me if I actually brought it on.
I'm just going to sort of hold it up for a second so I could show the audience what I spared them from having to sit through for the next 45 minutes or so.
You don't know. I kind of look beautiful in it. You have no idea what you're talking about. Anyway, the hat this week. So because we don't have a guest and because our topic is kind of anything that we feel like we want to talk about today, I made it a little bit more personal. And my husband and I are taking our 5-year-old son to Disneyland for the first time, which I'm probably more excited about than they are because I love Disneyland. And so my hat today, I don't know if everybody can see it, but it is peace, love, and Mickey Mouse.
Oh, it just doesn't get any sweeter than that.
It doesn't.
It's
And now I
precious.
actually have a reason to wear it on the show. Like
You
I was trying to
do.
connect it
Oh,
into
it's
something and I didn't
amazing.
think
I'm so happy for
unless we
you.
had Mickey on personally, I didn't think there was
Someday.
going to be.
Someday.
Right, exactly. Thank you for a couple of the people who responded to our posts about topics they'd like us to cover. We hope we'll get to them, but we do appreciate you engaging. And so we've had a few that have come forward and said, here's what we want to talk about. But first, we're going to start with what we want to talk about. What do you want to start?
Well, I think that Super Bowl is a great place to start. I said because, like I said a few minutes ago, like the whole week leading up to it, it was the amount of conversations I had with people who were literally like, I can't wait to see the Patriots lose.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see Tom Brady lose. I hate him. And it's fascinating to me because I've been such a sports fan my whole life. I grew up playing sports. I watch sports. I'm obsessed with sports. But as much as I love my own teams, I don't actively hate
Other teams.
Yeah. I certainly don't actively hate players. I mean, I tend to be much more passionate about a sport in general and teams as a whole than I am about individual athletes. But I can't recall a time where I sat there and really was like, I hate them. And people were like, I want them to lose just because.
Oh, I had a conversation. We wrote about it in our blog a couple weeks ago
Yeah.
about with our kids' PE teacher, and he literally said, "I hate the Patriots more
Right.
than I like any team."
Exactly.
So his whole
It's a huge
think about
statement.
his consciousness about the NFL in total is
Right.
only for one purpose and
Yeah.
one purpose only,
Yeah.
not to root for any particular
No,
team.
it's to
root
hate.
against
It's to hate
the Patriots.
Yeah.
I was blown away by that level. I'm like you. Like okay, I'm not a fan of the Patriots. I kind of went back in my memory as we were writing the blog about like, when I was growing up, I grew up in LA and I'm a big Ram fan.
Right.
You can't ever root for the Dallas Cowboys.
Sure.
You can't.
Right.
But do I hate like that?
Well, and we went to USC. We're hardcore Trojans fans. But do you hate? I mean, I know I don't. I don't hate
okay.
UCLA. I won't ever root for UCLA. I won't ever root for Cal. I mean, but I don't hate.
I did carry
Did
a
you?
teddy bear on a noose in the lead up to the big games every year, I have to admit, around campus.
While you were a student?
Totally.
But
But not after.
No, right. So you've let it
Because
go
and
since.
only because I didn't really wear a backpack after I got out of college, so I had nothing to attach
Nothing
it
to
to.
attach it to. But you grew out of that.
I did. I had to, because when I got into the real world, I actually had to work with people who went to UCLA.
Exactly.
So I had to kind of get over it.
Right. Yeah. Well, and and for me growing up, I was trying to think about, is there a place in my life where I can relate? And the closest I got to was that, as you know, my father was Croatian, my mom is half Nigerian and half Colombian. So growing up, we were huge soccer fans. And we were very clear on which countries we were rooting for, no matter what. But it didn't matter whether or not they were playing against Colombia. We did not root for Mexico, ever. And I was talking to my mom about this the other day. It's like, Mom, why? I mean, what was that about? It doesn't matter. We don't ever root for Mexico. In fact, she says, we don't root for Central America. Any Central American
But
team.
that's
It's
not
just
hating.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So it's like the closest I ever got to being in that mindset was sort of like, I know we don't root for Mexico or Central American soccer teams, but we don't hate. We don't
Yeah.
hate.
No, I want to know your opinion. I know I had an opinion about why people hate winners. Let's call it, it's kind of a 50-50 thing. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's against winners, and I think a lot of the sentiment that people were having in the lead up to the Super Bowl was, we just don't want to see the Patriots win again.
Sure.
So that we can maybe take a slice and talk about that separately.
Yeah.
But that hardcore hate.
The hardcore hate, and then it was, beyond the Patriots, it was also just, it was Tom Brady in particular.
Yeah.
And I got responses from people ranging from, well, he's such a cheater. He's gotten this far because he's just cheated his whole way through. I'm thinking, not
Probably
that simple.
not,
No,
no.
because I can guarantee you that even if others were cheating the way he's been accused of cheating, they probably wouldn't have the same results. Well, he's gotten lucky. He's a really lucky guy. It's not so much about luck either. This guy works super hard.
Super
we
hard.
talked about him, I think.
He's 40 years old, by the way. Like, you
He's
don't
40
make
years
it.
old, and we talked about him a few shows ago when
Yeah.
we were talking about sort of increasing longevity in
Yeah.
sports, and I think he's one of those athletes that we can really look to see how it is that you do that. I mean, this man is in incredible shape, but he does really amazing things with how he trains and how he sleeps and what his recovery is like and what he eats, and it's just amazing things. I don't think any of that is rooted in luck.
No, it can't be.
For Tom Brady.
It can't be luck, especially when you've been in the league as long as he has and you're 40 years old and
Right.
you're going to play again next year.
Sure.
I mean, that's not luck.
Yeah.
It's not lack of hard work.
Right.
So even if he cheated, which we could argue that, Deflategate was a moment in time where maybe he
Right.
did.
Right.
You know, we're not judge and jury, so we can't say for sure. But even if you include that,
Yeah.
you don't get to where you are.
It still requires a lot
And
of hard
cheat
work.
the
I mean,
whole way.
it makes me think of, years ago when we were talking about Lance Armstrong and his massive fall from grace, and it was very similar to these conversations. You know, he was such a cheater. I mean, he cheated for so long. He cheated. He used all these banned substances. And aside from the fact that now obviously there's been some new information that's come about that had said actually, you know, the drugs he was taking didn't really enhance his performance a whole lot or that much. And so, you know, anyhow, that's a separate issue. But I remember talking to people back then who were saying he's such a cheater. How can you support this guy? And I remember thinking, everyone was cheating. I mean, that's clearly widespread across the world of cycling. That's been obvious for decades. And everyone else who was cheating still did not exhibit the same results that this man did. So
yeah.
assume everyone's cheating, assume everyone's taking the exact same drugs. The man still worked his butt off.
Okay, so why do we love to hate winners?
I think for me personally, I really feel, because I'm thinking sort of about some of these conversations I've had with people, and I think that what it does is trigger those parts in us that maybe don't work quite as hard as we see others do. And I think it's maybe less about the other person's success and less about their work ethic and more about where it is that we see ourselves falling a little short of the mark.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
going back to the idea that sports being a metaphor for life,
Yeah.
when you're looking at somebody who's a winner, and maybe you take this to any industry, you know, do we love the Bill Gates of the world? Do we love the Richard
Right.
Bransons or any successful businessman?
Right.
There's a lot of, hard feelings around, or severe feelings, maybe
Right.
extreme feelings
Absolutely.
around those people. Yeah, it could be that. I agree with you. I think because I don't go to that extreme, but I do. I know how it feels. Like I made a comment a couple of shows ago about Nick Saban and how I'm not a fan of his.
Sure.
And my premise for not being a fan of Nick Saban really comes from a lot of media engagement on who he is and how I see him when he's on the field. Like he's not a effusive person. What are you doing over there?
See, we told you were going to participate.
He was going to participate. That's hysterical. Okay.
I like
Back
that.
to my point. Thank you very much.
And that's what we all talked about during Super Bowl with Bill Belichick. I mean,
Yeah.
can you show some emotion? Can you
Well, but I think, again,
let us know how you're feeling about anything?
Yeah, I think that we are shaped by media, how
Yeah.
we perceive people, how they do things. I mean, there's always rumors about how harsh Belichick is as a coach.
Right.
How harsh is even Tom Brady is on his teammates, when he is trying to rile them up.
Sure.
So I believe that a lot of my feelings are for sure tied in with the perception of how the media plays out these teams, these players, the situations. It's guided by that.
Right.
But I can't deny what you're saying. I think that when we see people who are willing to push themselves beyond what's normal,
Right.
beyond what's natural, and even coaches, it's not just about physical athletics. I can guarantee you, without knowing either Bill Belichick or Nick Saban or any of the most winning coaches,
Yeah.
the Joe Paternos of the world, or you go
Sure.
back however far back you want to go, they are hours in the locker room watching film, strategizing, staying up late, trying to work with every coach that they have, every
Yeah.
player, taking responsibility for being a coach on them
Sure.
full board.
Sure.
And that's what makes them a success.
It's what makes them a success, and we get to see that. And I think, I remember on Super Bowl Sunday, my daughter had a volleyball game, and she plays with her best friend. And they were both really trying to figure out a way to sort of work their way out of having to show up for volleyball. I said, absolutely, because it was happening right when the Super Bowl was happening. So I said, we'll go to volleyball, and we'll be home in time to join everyone for the party, and the rest of the game will be by the second half. And they couldn't get why I was pushing them because they know I wanted to watch the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm invested, But I said to them, this is aside from the fact that watching the Super Bowl is fun and we do it as a huge group and it's all of our friends and our family and we've got great food and we're having a great time. This is how it starts. The athletes on that field are doing what you girls are learning to do right now.
Right.
No matter what, you've got a commitment. You made a commitment to this volleyball team. So you show up for your players. You make a commitment to put in the effort, to put in the work, and to learn these tools and these techniques and these skills so that if someday you want to end up playing on a grand stage like the Super Bowl, you can look back and say, this is how I got here.
This is how I got there.
That's not about luck.
Yeah.
It's not about luck.
So when we fall short of that, we don't like the people who take it on themselves to not fall short.
And we see it everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, again, talking about sports as a metaphor for life, we see it in office situations. That person that shows up, at 7 o'clock when you don't really have to be there until 9. And they're first in and last out, and they drive us up the wall, right? And we love to criticize them because they're getting the perks, or maybe they're on the boss's good side, but they're putting in the work.
So one of our viewers, who shall remain nameless, but you know who you are, is commenting that nobody ever hates the University of Texas Hook'em Horns, and my guess is there are plenty of Aggies out there that really have strong feelings, deep-rooted, familial feelings against the University of Texas. So don't think you get away scot-free, Mr. Mike Swinney. But thank you. I was going to ask before you even commented, I was going to ask those who are watching, and I want to welcome everybody, especially my friends from overseas. Thank you so much. Our friends from overseas. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'd love to hear from you. Like, is there any sports team or, athlete that you hate? And why? And we'd love to get some feedback. Let's move on a little bit, though, because I do want to talk about the positive side of the Super Bowl. A couple of positive things. One,
the refs.
Thank you for picking that up. Finally.
They just let the players play, and there was flow, and amazing things happened as a result.
And it actually ended in a normal hour.
Exactly. Exactly.
I have to tell you, you and I have been talking about having a show, and we really want to try and find a referee to come on and talk about this.
So if you're out there listening to us and you're a ref,
please
be in touch.
Because
we'll have you on.
We're frustrated and fascinated about why the penalty calling this season seems to have been so intense, and the whole issue around did they catch the ball, did they not catch the ball, and the changing the rules and the fluidity of the rules, and how it's becoming like an obsession to not get it wrong to the point that the game is an hour longer than it needs to be.
Which is so interesting, because we know that in sports there is no such thing as perfection. There just isn't. That's part of the beauty of any game. The ref is a player on the field, and those calls that he or she does see or doesn't see or misconstrues, that's all part of what shapes the game and gets you towards that final result. It's part of the beauty of the game. I think it's necessary. So this pursuit we're on now to sort of achieve, perfection no matter what, and to make sure that we're, in some ways, it's almost like they're just so afraid to make a mistake because it's such a public forum. And everyone does jump on them and criticize, and but it's just, I think there has to be room to just let people
make a mistake. Well, I want to pick up on that point because, again, if you go to sports as a metaphor for life, how many times in a day is something external to you or your game plan going to impact what you do?
Absolutely.
And if you can't respond to it or you can't pick yourself up from it, you lose a job. Like those are the things that cause you to end up breaking up with somebody because of a miscue. And
being stuck in analysis paralysis because you're trying to sort of weigh everything and you can't move in one direction, make one decision because you're so afraid of, that what if.
Exactly. And it almost is reflective of where we are as a culture in terms of social media. Like, how many baby boomers are saying, thank God when we were growing up, we didn't have Facebook because otherwise we probably would have never gotten a job, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe not you, but for sure I would have been in a lot of trouble.
No, but it's a very good point. I have this conversation with my kids about being really mindful about the things that they put out, because unlike when I was growing up many decades ago, where you could make a mistake and you could go to that.
As the youngest person in the room right now, because I know that for a fact.
Not by far. Thank you very much.
Jarvis is a little closer to you than me.
Yes.
But not much.
So you're the oldest one in the room.
Happy
My point is, when I was growing up, going through junior high and high school, those really formative years, I could make a mistake. All of us can make mistakes. We could go to parties and people would get drunk and they might, smoke a joint. They might do things that I know.
Did you really do that?
No, not me. I've never even smoked a cigarette. You know me. But my point is, had I wanted to.
It's a shame I can't say the same
No
thing.
one would have caught me on film.
Right.
No one would
Exactly.
have taken a shot of me doing this and then posted it so that the next day when I go to school, it's all over the place.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And so I think that this whole focus on trying not to get it wrong is damaging.
Yeah.
It's damaging to the sports.
Sure.
All sports. It's not just in football. I do believe that instant replay has its place.
Yeah.
You and I differ a little bit because I think that even in soccer it could have a valid place. I know. Don't give me that look.
Lord.
Is the camera on her? Do you have it on her
Lord.
right now?
Just let's be clear. Let's be clear that despite what Wendy has just said, there is no room in football, proper football, soccer, for instant replay.
I
Wendy.
said there's some space.
God love you.
I know. Okay, so
Continue.
I believe that we have well overstepped what's reasonable, and
Absolutely.
the fact that the Super Bowl was played and people were able to do their job.
Sure.
I mean, look, I don't want to see a holding penalty against my team.
Yeah.
I don't want to see some wide receiver get flattened or interfered with on a pass. I want to protect the quarterback. I want those things to be in place. But when we have taken it to such an extreme where the players can't play, and again, in all sports, and we are stuck as fans watching endlessly as the referees are reviewing the tape, it cannot ultimately be good for the sport. And I think the Super Bowl showed us that when you allow the game to be played out, how exciting was it?
So exciting.
It was
Such
a great game.
Such an amazing
because
game.
stuff happened.
Right.
Because
Lots of great
stuff happened.
Yeah.
On both sides.
On both sides, absolutely. Some really fun surprises.
Last thing about the Super Bowl, I do want to say, for some reason this time it really hit me, again, as in the theme of sports being a metaphor for life. There were a lot of moments that really reminded me of things that I could be doing in my own life, and watching it play out in real time
Sure.
in sports is an incredible luxury that I don't feel everybody understands entirely. There aren't many places where you can view life happening in a I don't know, say petri dish.
really.
I was trying to think of a better word than a petri dish, but in
But
a
it is.
laboratory.
In a lab, sure.
So there were three things that caught my attention. One, I just want to say that Nick Foles epitomized the ability to seize an opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, here is a guy who's always been a backup quarterback,
Sure.
always,
Sure.
never getting a lot of play time
Yeah.
on any team. He's been on multiple teams. We all know the story. He was going to retire, blah, blah, blah. Carson Wentz goes down.
Yeah.
He stepped up. I mean, not just slightly stepped up. He really stepped up.
Yeah.
And in my view, seized the opportunity that was being given him with no doubt, no fear, no regret, no
Right.
sense of, oh, poor Carson. Now, he may have been saying that and not wanting to really.
Sure.
He has got himself to a level where he's not only a Super Bowl quarterback, but he's changed the trajectory of his whole career because he didn't apologize for stepping up and being excellent.
Absolutely.
I don't do that often enough. I'm sorry to say I'm admitting this in front of millions of people, but I
But
don't
none
do that
of us do. Yeah.
Some people do. He did.
Right.
I thought it was a great reminder. You're clearly just agreeing with me. Okay, I'll move on.
I think it's a great reminder. I agree.
I felt like the risks that were taken in the Super Bowl were like risks I haven't really seen recently in sports, and maybe not that dramatically. Both sides, Bill Belichick, both coaches deciding to use their quarterbacks as wide receivers. Doug Peterson in the 2 times where he was on 4th and short, and sometimes not so short. I think one of them was a 4th and 3rd down. Going for it, not in the best place on the field. Many coaches, and they have in the past, would play it safe, take the points, especially against the Patriots. You want to have every easy point you can. I was screaming at the television going, what, are you an idiot?
Yeah.
And look, it paid off for him.
Well, and I think also it's important to remember that, taking risks is important, period, and you can't always necessarily worry about what the end result might be, I think, because there were a few a few decisions Belichick made that had they won the game, he would have been
Been a
lauded
star.
as just
Yeah.
the superstar.
Yeah.
I mean, this man's a genius. How
Yeah.
amazing. Didn't work out that way. And so now all of his decisions have been called into question. It's unfortunate,
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, he took some huge risks and they're
he did.
necessary,
they are.
you
They are. So remember out there, take risks. They may not all pay off, but if you don't try,
Yeah.
you don't have the chance to see if any of them will pay off.
Absolutely.
And then finally, I'm not a Tom Brady fan. I don't hate him.
Yeah.
I don't hate him, but I'm not a Tom Brady fan. And I think, as I was saying earlier, the reason I'm not a Tom Brady fan is probably colored by the media for me
Sure.
and how I perceive him walking up and down the sideline. I saw an interview with him before the game started
Yeah.
that completely changed my mind. And it reminded me that humility is a practice that when you embrace it, brings so many great things to you.
Sure.
He was interviewed about one part of it in particular, which I'll just focus on because otherwise we'll go on too long about it, was they were asking him, does he believe that he is of the caliber of a Michael Jordan? The equivalent
Yeah.
in basketball. And he was like almost dumbfounded. And it was real. Like I didn't feel any fakeness about it.
Sure.
Saying not only Michael Jordan, but other greats in all the sports that he loves and watches and
Yeah.
has been his whole life. He doesn't even feel close to it because in his mind, even to this day, with 5 Super Bowl rings and 8 Super Bowl appearances, and the record that I doubt many, if anybody, will over or surpass in any
Sure.
time to come, believes that he's still that kid that got drafted, in the 6th round of the NFL draft, and that he, didn't really play well in his freshman and sophomore year in high school, and
Right.
it wasn't until he was a junior that really things came about, and that's the person that he walks on the field with.
Right.
That's the guy that
Maybe
gets him
that's
where
one of the
he is.
things that keeps him going, working so hard and pushing so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Pushing yourself to those extremes.
I think that the Super Bowl provided us with a lot of very interesting
Lots
topics.
of good stuff to talk about. Absolutely.
Moving on from that, we can't ignore the Olympics.
That's also gotten people worked up in lots of different ways.
Sorry. I love the Olympics.
You would.
I love the Olympics. But there's a lot of very fascinating controversy surrounding them. Let's go straight for the first one that we really don't
We
like.
got text messages, or at least I did. I don't know, but Pence sat down.
Pence sat down.
Yeah.
How rude, first of all. let's just say how rude. Let's forget the politics.
Yeah.
You've been invited to join the president of the host country.
Sure.
There's many there are many presidents of countries around the world that didn't get that invitation.
Right.
Okay, and we didn't even send our president, which might be, with no politics here, a good thing.
Exactly. We're okay with that decision.
We send our vice president, and when the person who invites you to sit in the box with you,
Right.
his countrymen walk out onto the field, you sit down. Now, I got that the North Koreans were there, but let's just
Right.
isolate that for a minute.
Okay, so we talked about this ages ago. Do people have a right or a responsibility to use whatever platform has been afforded to them, whatever platform they have, to make a statement? And, we've said yes when we've talked specifically
Yeah.
about athletes.
Yeah.
Now, what's fascinating about Pence is that he was someone who didn't feel like the, kneeling was appropriate in
Yeah,
the NFL.
well,
But as
he
our
and
dear
his-
friend Betsy said, Mike Pence
She is
took
watching,
a knee.
by the way.
Is she watching? Lovely. He took a knee. it's what he did, really. He sat down. He took a knee. He had to make a point. He made a statement. And he sat down. Was it appropriate or not?
But I mean, we go back to the conversation about Colin Kaepernick, that despite feeling like he has the right to express his views, that maybe his way of doing it with kneeling during the national anthem didn't help
Right.
his cause, which
Yeah.
and that the core of the message was obscured, let's say, by the controversy that it surrounded, and it. Jarvis got very passionate about it. We were very passionate about the fact that
Sure.
the people that he was trying to help actually, their cause got
Yeah.
shuffled to the
Absolutely.
bottom of the
Yeah.
column of newsprint
Yeah.
because it was more about that.
Yeah.
Did the same thing happen here? Is Mike Pence and the fact that he's decided to sit down and now all we're going to do is talk about that, obscuring what his reason for sitting Isn't it? Is it hurting us, or is it just something to talk about?
I think it's something to talk about.
Yeah. So not
Really,
much more than that.
Not much more than that. I don't think so.
I just think it embarrasses me a little
Yeah.
bit. And I understand the politics behind it, but I believe the Olympics are the one sporting an event where politics really are consistently tried to be put on the side. Like
Sure.
we try and put it on the side, even
Yeah.
the organizers. I mean, okay, let's not talk. Well, you could talk about the IOC and all the politics that they have and all the things that they do that we don't like.
Right.
But when it comes down to the game starting,
Yeah.
kind of all of that's supposed to stop. And he used, I think, a platform of peace and understanding and unity to express something that could have been better expressed someplace else.
I completely agree with you. And I remember, when I saw it happen, I remember thinking, what a shame, because when you see what North Korea and South Korea did to come together, which was not easy by any means, I think he could have had, a really impact in saying, this exactly what you said. This is a time for all of us to put all
Right.
that other stuff aside and let's
Right.
come together for the sake of sport. And when we saw two huge countries do something really, so many people would say is miraculous, not what we ever expected to have happen. I think it was a missed opportunity for him.
I agree. I think
it was a shame.
I think it was a missed opportunity for him. I think it was a missed opportunity for our country. I think it's a misrepresentation of how the people of America really believe. Because I, again, think we all want to see peace in the world
Sure.
ultimately, and we understand the politics of saber rattling and showing, pumping out chests and
Yeah.
trying to prove a point. But this just wasn't the platform,
Yeah.
and I find it slightly embarrassing.
I agree. I
Okay.
agree. What else got you excited about the Olympics?
Oh, so many things. We were talking about this as we walked in. I kind of just thought about this in my head. How's everyone feeling? And again, please, we'd love to hear your opinions. There's been some comments back and forth. So thank you, and welcome to those who have joined us. We're talking about the Olympics right now. The Olympic athletes, what is it? OAR from Russia. So Russia goes and does really bad things over a sustained period of time,
Sure.
and they are caught and discovered. The country of Russia. Now, there were some athletes that unfortunately were forced into taking performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
Maybe their choice wasn't so good, but it was a state-sponsored program of cheating.
Right.
And rightfully, the IOC did put a ban on Russia for the Winter Olympics, saying that they could not compete as a country in the Olympics. And yet we have a 150-plus strong contingency of athletes who hail from Russia.
Right.
And I was curious. I asked Eira, do you feel that's right? Do you feel that they should be allowed to compete given the ban on Russia? Because the reality of it is they're still Russian.
They're still Russian. I mean, it's look, I don't know if there's an easy answer. I think my gut response is always, yes, ban them. People, there was such an extreme case because, like you said, it was such a widespread state-sponsored, scheme here. But it was, and if you don't ban across the board, I'm not sure that there's any real impact, to the government to get them to clean up their acts. Having said that, is there anything that can really be done to get them to change their minds about how they operate? I have no idea. I think we banned them, and then we created an opening for them to be able to still send their athletes in to do what they want to do, which is just compete on this global stage. And they've earned it. I mean, these are athletes who have worked hard, and they tested clean, and they're there, and they're doing what they have been working so hard to do for so long, and I get that. At the same time, there has to be some consequences, and I think that in this case, the consequences have to be extreme.
When you first said it, I was like, you are so harsh. I really totally disagreed.
It's not the first time you said that to me, just for the record.
It's true.
Right.
But you keep me in
I'm
line.
okay with it.
Yeah, I know. You're all right with it.
Hasn't
It's
softened
cool.
me up.
Yeah.
Hasn't softened
What
me up
has?
yet.
You're so, come on.
I am.
Come
I am
on.
a
Look,
softie.
what did you say to me today? You wore the vest to kind of give a nod to the Winter Olympics. I should have mentioned that when we started talking about it. And Eira never wears anything.
Well, and it was really just because I've been under the weather for the last week and I'm not feeling good. So I've actually been very, very cold all day. But I thought it would be fun to sort of say, It was for the
Winter Olympics. I thought you were being very harsh, and I agree that the consequences need to be extreme. Otherwise, other countries might do the same thing, and Russia may very well do it again. I feel like I think, however, it has gone too far. I think to have a contingent of athletes that is almost as strong as Canada or not as big as the U.S., but many other countries does not seem fair.
Yeah.
And I say this not having trained, my whole life to be a part of an Olympic game, and I appreciate what the athletes who chose not to or who have never taken performance enhancing drugs are doing. I feel like there could have been maybe a limit, to the number of athletes that could compete under this kind of Olympic banner.
Sure.
Maybe that would have, but again, I feel like they're competing just because they're flag. And do you think there's anybody sitting back in Russia going, "Oh, darn it, they're not playing our national anthem"?
Yeah, exactly. That's not the issue. They're coming home with medals, right?
They're coming home with medals, and they're going to have parades in the streets just the same. Yeah. And I feel like they didn't go far enough. And I agree with you. I'm not sure what the compromise could have been.
Yeah, I don't either.
But I feel like it's too extreme. It's too. Nothing. Yeah. There was no real impact.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
What else about the Olympics? Oh, you had a good one.
Well, I did, because this was interesting. I overheard someone saying, what drives me crazy about American broadcasting is that you get like 1 minute of watching the sport in action, and then you get like 15 minutes of someone's sob story that does nothing more but tug at your heartstrings and make you want to cry. When all we want to do is watch games. All we want to do is watch the sport.
Talk about a hard heart.
Well, I sat there for a second thinking, how do you separate that? How do you separate someone's story, especially in this country? I can't talk about how athletes are treated around the world, but I know certainly in this country it's very clear that our Olympic athletes are not well supported.
Not all of them. Let's say there are some that are.
Right, but we're not talking about the ones who are fortunate enough to have the big endorsement deals and have money coming in. I mean, I'm talking about really most of these athletes don't have huge endorsement deals. They're not getting huge stipends from the IOC. They're working as plumbers. They're working as,
They're doing this part-time.
They're
being an Olympic athlete part-time is my point.
Well, they're training full-time and they're still taking on these huge jobs to have to cover their own expenses.
Right.
It includes buying their own equipment. It includes covering all of their own travel expenses, their own, tournament costs. I mean, they're paying all of these things out of pocket. So these people, yes, they might be sob stories. They might be tugging at your heartstrings, and you might want to just watch what it is that their end result is. But I don't know how you separate someone's backstory from that athletic pursuit on the spot.
Well, I don't think you can. I think it's that backstory that got them there. They aren't who they are without where they came from, what their trials and tribulations have been. And quite frankly, I don't know how they would show much more. I think there are, okay, I'm going to separate this out. I think there are many channels that whoever made this comment, to you could watch that would allow them to see coverage all the time.
Sure.
Because it's there and it's going on, and you can even, there's interactive, you can switch from one sport to another. You don't have to see that.
Right.
So for that person, I would encourage them to have a better, cable subscription or, satellite subscription.
Yeah.
But putting
the
that
bigger
aside,
point,
no, the bigger point is that especially in the Olympics, how people get there is equally as important.
Absolutely.
It is equally as important. It cannot be separated. Being an Olympian athlete is at a level of excellence that most of us will not experience. We don't have that drive. Doesn't mean that we don't have drive, but I mean, it takes something special to do what you do and to get to that place where you're like one or two or three or four best in your country at what you do.
Yeah. And their performance, I mean, whether or not they win a medal, whatever their placement is worth it because of that experience.
Exactly.
And you don't get to separate any of that. That is all part of how they got here. I mean, what we're seeing on the screen, what we're watching, is someone's entire story. you know?
Well, and I feel like I want to know more about them. Here I'm watching these people. I probably don't watch any of their sports outside of the Olympics, to be honest.
Right.
And I do want to know about them. I do want to know what their story is. I'm interested even in the stories of people overseas because they have a different perspective. They have a different way of having to deal with their process and how they get. I think just to that point, one of the interesting stories right now is, have you noticed how many American athletes are standing up and competing under other countries' banners, flags?
Yeah.
You know, think about that story. How many are, there's a South Korean and a Japanese figure skater. You see it all the time and it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But their story must have been, I know I'm never going to be good enough in this country. I have a way of getting to the Olympics via another country, whether it's by a familial relationship or I think the American guy who's skating under the South Korea flag in the pairs just kind of said, okay, I'm going to emigrate to South Korea and get my citizenship there, and he lives there now.
Well, and again, I have to stress this point because it's such a, it really bugs me.
Something bugs you?
It bugs me. Look, I'm just, it's hard. You know, this country does not support all of our Olympic athletes equally, nor the way we should, in order to get them off to the Olympics to perform the way they should and to do the work that they do. They come home with medals for our country, lots of medals for our country. And I don't know all the numbers for every single country across the board, but I have done enough research to know that there are athletes in many, many, many other countries are much better equipped. They're much better supported. They're provided great housing and food and equipment and transportation and travel costs, and you know, and it's painful. It's painful for me sometimes to hear how much money the IOC makes, how much money the U.S. Olympic Committee brings in.
Isn't it really the U.S. Olympic Committee?
The U.S. Olympic Committee brings in. Our huge training facility in Colorado isn't even used mainly by our American athletes. It's used primarily by athletes from other countries that lease out the space that their athletes can come in and train here. I think it's a shame because there is so much money there that I just don't think gets trickled down to the athletes the way that they need to be, receiving these funds.
Do you have any opinion as to why that happens?
Well, there's so many groups in between. I mean, there's the U.S. Track Association. There are all these different groups in between that get the money funneled to them, and then it's up to them to disperse the money down to their athletes. And just at the end of the day, look, we've got lots of great executives making huge money, and the money that needs to be getting to the athletes just isn't getting there.
So let me ask you this question then. Why do the athletes continue on? I mean, if they're not getting funded, if they know there's big money there, you're more of an athlete than I am. I'm kind of more of the home athlete. Why would you continue? What's the mindset?
That's why you do it. You do it for the love of the sport. You decide that this is you. It's a part of you. There's no separating you, the athlete, from you, the person. This is what you set out to do.
So
and you do it at any cost. You do it at any cost. God willing, if you can, you do it at any cost. And for so many people, they're willing to take every risk. They're willing to do whatever it takes, work odds and ends here and there to make all the money that they can. They sacrifice huge amounts of resources and time, and it is worth everything to them. And I just think that, again, if we're sending our athletes out to perform, to compete for our country, to bring home medals, to bring us honor, to bring us all these amazing things that we love to see, we should be taking really good care of them.
Even if they aren't even favored to win a medal.
Absolutely.
Because if you're going to do that,
we have the resources.
We have the resources.
We have the resources.
Look, we can send 232, I think that was the number of American athletes over to South Korea. We can certainly make sure that they have a route that has some support in it.
Absolutely.
One of our longtime listeners, Betsy Davis, is commenting that the bios and the kind of the backstories, it creates a reason for others who are not diehard sports fans to also watch.
Sure.
It helps
engaged.
Ratings.
Yeah.
So, yes, does it help ratings, but doesn't it help the entertainment value, the experience of watching the Olympics, Do you think that if it didn't help ratings, it wouldn't be there?
And I don't think it's just about ratings. I think it also helps us to learn, that it's possible to be able to follow your dream, as hard as it may be. To learn from these athletes how it is that they go about doing it, You know, I mean, it's not simple. It's not an easy path, but you get to hear these stories and learn what it's like for them to really be able to follow their dream. And I think we learn a lot about what it takes to get there.
I think we learn a lot, and I am making sure that when we're watching it with our son David, that
Right.
I'm pointing these things out. I think the team figure skating competition was an amazing lesson on so many fronts. From starting skating when you're 4 years old and having such a passion for it that you
Right.
when you're 10, you're going to be in the Olympics,
Sure.
and to, I'm sorry, I'm a little annoyed. I don't understand the technical judging in figure skating. I don't
It's
understand.
changed so much.
I don't understand how a guy can fall 3 times and still get the best score.
Yeah, it has changed
It
so
just
much.
makes no
It's
sense to me.
really interesting.
But even that, like I was saying to David, the Canadian skater fell in his individual program on the team event
Right.
portion of it. He fell 3 times, hit the ice,
Right.
and still
Yeah.
came out with the best score. And I was
Yeah.
like,
So in that sense, it's a good lesson.
It's a
no matter
great
how many
lesson.
times you fall, you can still get up and be a winner.
you can. It was a great
very
lesson.
important.
I was still incredibly annoyed because and I'm not just saying because he's American and the guy was Canadian.
Sure.
Like our guy did an amazing program, didn't fall once, and it was like, and he came in 3rd. I was like,
Right.
what?
Right.
I just don't understand
No,
it. But
I
I
hear
guess
you.
that's why they don't pay me to be a judge of figure skating. Because if it were up to me, it would have been different.
That's the only reason they don't pay you to
Probably
be a judge.
many, yes.
Figure skating.
That was the only reason that they paid me to not be to be a judge. Maybe they should pay me not to be a judge. No, but I think if we look at the Olympics, that there's so many opportunities for. Did you see the half pipe, the men's snowboarding last night?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It was like, this was qualifying, people.
Yeah.
And the commentators were talking about it. And I have to say, again, like if we approach life
Sure.
every day, like Shaun White and what's his name from Australia? Sorry, his name just went straight out of my head. Anyway, the Australian
Yeah.
guy and the Japanese competitor, they're going out there hitting 98s in, they didn't have to.
Right. They're going to go all out.
They're going to go out. Shaun
So
White
great.
could have gone out, done a very mediocre job, come in 2nd, wouldn't have been a problem. It
Sure.
was qualifying.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if we attract our lives like,
These are risk takers, and these are also some extreme sports. And this is just it's that mindset. You go all out. Like every run is could
everyone
be,
is all out?
Yeah, could be your very best. It could be you do something new, something different, something exciting. Like everyone is a chance.
And it's like, I want to
To push
win.
yourself,
It doesn't
yeah.
matter that it's qualifying. I want to win.
Sure.
I want to show people what I'm all about.
Sure.
With no
So
fear.
wild. Yeah.
So this is, another one of the many reasons why I love the Olympics. My dad was saying the other day that he watches everything, even the biathlon. He's like, who the heck knows about biathlon? But I love it. The women are
Exactly.
amazing. And curling.
We'll watch it all.
We can, we're getting close to the end of the show, but we can end on curling is becoming a big.
No, we're not ending on curling. We are ending on what happened to us this weekend that pushed my buttons.
that's right. Sorry.
Pushed my buttons
One
big
more
time.
thing. One more thing. Okay, but folks, curling is becoming a big thing. If
It
you
is.
want to find a place where you can curl and drink at the same time, apparently they're all over the place. So I'm going out for that. And Betsy's saying it's all about the ratings always, so they don't
love
care
it.
about how we feel. Darn networks. Go.
Flag football. Our boys were given what, Wendy, this weekend?
They were given medals.
They were given participation medals.
They were given participation medals, but they did have something behind it.
Yes, they were living and breathing. That's
No. They made effort. They
Okay.
both were had quote unquote tackles with pulling flags.
my son was given a participation medal for his exemplary role in communicating.
It's important. It's important when you're
communicating.
And by the way,
I sat
with
there
love
looking
for
back
your
at the
son,
whole hour. I'm like,
he-
what did he say?
he
What
did
did he?
communicate.
Even nonverbal cues. Where was the communication that was
No.
so spot on today that warranted a participation
actually
medal?
your son spent half the time daydreaming watching the other
He
game.
was watching the other game like
You
that
even-
team over there is amazing. I want to go join that game.
You even had to snap him out of it a
I
couple
did.
times. So,
Stay
okay.
present, son. Stay present. I kept telling him, and
Yeah.
then he gets handed a medal. I was beside myself.
Well, you know why they got the medals.
because they were the only two who hadn't yet gotten medals.
Exactly.
It's painful, which again, it leads me back to the original point, which is You do not hand out participation medals. Kids need to learn that you reward effort.
I agree.
The effort at the end of the season is very simple. When I was growing up, it was simple. First, second, third place. That was it. That was it.
Do
you
I-
got a trophy, first, second, third place.
Do I dare raise this? Did you see the email?
What email?
There is an award ceremony after every game, and
can't
every
take it.
kid
I
will
can't take
they are going to present trophies to every kid.
I can't take it. That's it. We're cut out of this game early. There's no way.
No, but like,
can't take
okay,
it.
we're making fun of it, and not to make fun of your son. Look, on one hand, I'm not for participation medals. I have watched this process over the last few weeks,
Right.
and the intention for sure is to award one of the players each week that does show kind of over and above the exceptional for that week. I think the problem is that when you're 5 years old, you really have no way of really showing that excellence. Because if I watch all those kids on all of the teams, not just ours, a little bit more scattered
Yeah.
than the rest of the teams because we haven't had some focus coaching.
Right.
But if you watch all of them, they're all kind of all over the place. They're
Sure.
5, they're 6 years old. It's
okay to be there. It's okay to
We
be in
don't
that
need to
space.
give
You don't have to give out medals for
medals
any
for it,
reason.
yeah.
Like the whole point is to just show up,
Right.
have a whole lot of fun.
Right.
You know, I tell my kids every week, because every weekend is full of just, one game to another. It's, did you have fun?
Yeah.
Because if you're having fun, you're going to put in the time it takes
Right.
and the effort it takes to learn the skill.
Right.
And if you learn the skill, you'll master it and you'll
Right.
excel.
Right.
It's about that. It's very simple. Have fun, put in the effort, take the time, learn the skill, excel.
If maybe there was one medal at the end of the season where one kid got, like, where the coaches were really paying attention to what that kid was doing and how they were growing over the course of the season, would that be okay for you, or you're just saying no?
It's very simple. It's very simple. The season comes to an end. The close of the season, we have a bowl game this Sunday.
You don't believe in MVPs?
I don't understand what the bowl game is for this Sunday.
It's just it's just an extra game.
Exactly. It's just an extra game.
But yeah.
Okay, but you play tournaments, you play championship games, winners, losers.
Right.
That's it.
But there are MVPs. You don't
Right.
agree with an MVP award? Oh, so
An
you're even
MVP
talking
award
even
at this age.
No, I'm talking in any sport at any age.
Much older, when they even have an awareness of what it means to be MVP. Right now, they all think they're MVPs because they get a medal every week.
Right.
For living and breathing. So you live, you breathe, and you're MVP.
Okay. Well, Betsy wants to know if the coach is getting an award, and he is going to get a
the
big
coach is getting something
raspberry.
at the end of this season. Getting a Razzie.
And she also wants to know: did you let David keep his medal?
I explained to him that he gets to walk away with what everyone else on his team walks away with, but he must understand it's simply for living and breathing. And when we got home, he and Eloise were laughing. He said, walk around. I'm putting your medal for living and breathing in your room.
I'm breathing.
Putting your medal for living and breathing on your doorknob.
He was excited about breathing. I had such fun. Just freestyling it.
too.
And I really
Yeah.
want to thank everybody who joined us, and thank you for your comments. We will do this again
Often.
sometime
Yeah, we need
soon,
to.
but not on our next show, because on our next show, we are really excited to announce that Rook Campbell, a former European cyclist, pro cyclist on the European circuit, who is now a professor at USC in sociology. She explores the politics, money, and culture of sports for a living. Yep. She's still an amazing athlete, and she is coming on. We have been wanting to cover this topic for a while, but we wanted the right person on to cover it with us, and that is sexual abuse in sports. Yeah. It's been talk in every industry, and I don't think we would be doing us or anybody justice if we didn't raise this, and we're very, very happy that Rook is going to be able to join us for this, because not only does she have a view on it here in the United States, but having cycled professionally in Italy, things she saw really shocked her. Sure. And I think her commentary, she's not an expert, but she's experienced it herself. Absolutely. And is a commentator on all aspects of the sports industry. So please, 2 weeks from today, that's February 27th, we would love to see you here again. We thank you. We thank Jarvis for once again being excellent and supporting us all the way. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Have a great day.
Thank you,
don't forget, we're on Facebook, Twitter. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and our iTunes iTunes and CastBox podcasts. Have a great day.
Shows that make you laugh. Shows that make you think. Music that moves you. It could only be one place. Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.